So this is Sedum acre, and so in the document that we have here, we try to give you an idea. We show you the pictures of the project sites. Each one, we have some photos of where, well, you can't see this, but where they were growing and the conditions. And then we have a page, sort of a little fact sheet page for each species. And we talk about the conditions on the roof where the plant was observed growing. And then we talk about what the health of the plant and the coverage of the plant and some of its other characteristics. And then we basically kind of give a little brief description of what we think about this plant. And so this plant we found is a really good Ecoroof plant. It can survive without irrigation in numerous circumstances. However, it gets a little bit tricky. It can survive, and then it can diminish in its size dramatically. From, for instance, this size here, if it goes through a hot, dry summer, it could get to 1/10 that size, and it would look like that other plant that I showed you earlier, the origanum, and it's going to have a lot of twigs and things that are there, but it won't be the spectacular-looking plant. And then, of course, it does change colors. Most sedums do change with the seasons. Now, what I've noticed in most of them is when they turn red, there's been this, I've heard some people say that when they turn red, they're being stressed. And actually, I'll show you some shots of sedum that it's in the spring. I don't think they're being stressed in the spring because they're actually getting plenty of moisture and things. At least it's not stressed because of heat. It's something else, and some that is associated with why they turn colors so that they can adjust themselves to survive. And then Sedum album is probably a workhorse. That's my term for it. It is used throughout any place that does Ecoroofs in the world, from Asia to especially Europe, and this particular plant is used quite a bit in the United States. There are many varieties of album, and all of them appear to do really well. Some of them are very compact and small, and some get kind of leggy and longer, but they do really well. And then Sedum divergens. This is another, as it's referred to, Cascade Stonecrop. This is another one of our native sedums, and this one appears to be a really good one, but it also appears to be a sedum that just a general thing that we found in looking at sedums on different roofs that were being irrigated and sort of maintained is that some of these plants that are native, they didn't always like that maintenance, and they did better. For instance, this right here is growing what we call our BES test roofs out at the sewage treatment plant in North Portland. And that has never had water, never been irrigated, and this is in the springtime, and those are the yellow flowers. This is what it looks like close up. It's really interesting looking. It kind of looks like a Pillsbury. Well, that's what it looks like to me. You can, whatever you think it looks like. And it has not had water. So we noticed that on a number of projects where they were not irrigated, that this did well. This is doing pretty well up on the roof here in a number of locations, and we have watered this for the past 2 years. We've irrigated it. And these little things right here are golf balls that somebody threw up on the roof. It's out in an open area.
On that one, Tom, the red growth that you see in the picture on the left, is that new growth?
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's new growth, yeah.
And so I think just that's one neat thing about this plant is that there's that 3 colors, especially apparent, whether it was brought out more so because the test roof that it wasn't maintained or something like that, but there's that photo doesn't do it justice with the yellow, the red, and the green. There was quite a bit of pop in color on that plant from an aesthetic point of view.
How much soil is on the test roof?
On this side, it's 6 inches.
Okay. Right there.
Well, no, it's planted with 6 inches, and then the other side is.
But isn't that the rock drainage layer?
Yeah, I was just going to get to that.
Sorry.
This is the soil. So this in this soil, I don't know what the spec was. This is back in 2002, so it's buried in our file somewhere. But it's not a typical Ecoroof soil right now. But this is the gravel edge. So the sedum, there is a little bit of sedum up in the grassy area, but most of it made its way down to this gravel edge, and that's where it's doing really well.
This past Sunday, the Ecoroof saw the test because you saw the far left-hand side along the ridge was still green. Took my husband with me.
To see this?
To see.
Yeah.
He said that has to be the rattiest looking thing he's ever seen. So he didn't know if that is a good example or medium or a really bad example.
It's a really good example of itself. And so that's exactly what our engineers out at the sewage treatment plant said was, what is this? Is this good or bad? And I thought, well, that's an interesting comment. Is it good or bad? And actually, it was meant to be a test. So we have learned that, yes, in this area, the sedums look good. We did plant all sedums. We didn't plant any grass. So all the grass is volunteer. And it's a certain kind of species. It doesn't get too big because it's a pretty difficult environment for it. But what we also, on another project, one of our pump stations, which is about to be constructed, we took this idea and we took and made rows of gravel. So we have gravel at the bottom, about 3 feet of soil, and then gravel again, and then more soil, and then gravel again, trying to replicate this idea and see if it is the gravel and the drainage. And then we actually have a little piece of filter fabric to help hold moisture in the gravel a little bit more. So we'll see if that works. So in that sense, yes, this is an example of something that's working because it's giving us information, and that's why we did it. And it also shows what we used to have the full photo of this in here, but I think we took it out. But it shows what it looks like if it's just left. So this grass that you just see a little bit of here, it's all grass and it looks really good, but it does dry out and it's all brown in the summer, and so that's a potential issue if you have it in an area where you're concerned about combustion of this grass. Sedum hispanicum, as it sounds, it's from Europe and Spain, I guess. And it's a very interesting one, too. It's growing on a lot of, it's kind of small and kind of, kind of like acri. It's not a real large growing plant in terms of its leaves and things like that. It's kind of I'll put it in the small range of plants. It kind of hugs the surface. And it's also kind of a tricky plant. It comes and goes. So there's a place on, for instance, Hamilton, where it's been there since 1999, and it'll grow really well in a certain area, and then all of a sudden, through the summer, it'll die out, and then it'll be growing in other places that it wasn't planted, and so then it'll grow back the next year in the place where it died out. So a lot of sedums do that. They kind of come and go, or at least that's how I refer to them. Sedum kamschaticum, as it sounds, it's from that, I assume, from that part of Russia called Kamchatka. Right. It's really a durable plant. It seems to grow anywhere, and one of its drawbacks aesthetically, in a sense, is that it's deciduous. That's another thing about, especially if you're looking at aesthetics, ask the question, is the plant or the sedum or other succulent, is it deciduous or not? And most of the sedums are not 100% deciduous, but this one is. Spuriums, quite a few of the spuriums have quite a number of leaves that remain through the winter, but this one, once they drop off, they turn brown. They're beautiful in this time of year. They turn orange, so it's a really nice color. They have a beautiful yellow flower in early spring. The leaves quite often are a vibrant green, but then the end of October till about March, it's nothing but it's just brown, and so it's some developers have not liked that.
And what's the size of this one, Tom? It's a little bit bigger.
It's bigger, yeah. The leaves are bigger. It mounds a little bit more, and sometimes when it's kind of and a number of sedums do this when they mound and they're sort of on their own or even in a group. Sometimes the center of the sedum will die back, and that's kind of a natural sort of characteristic. Although it's a little bit hard to know exactly about that. We'll get into that a little bit later about when sedums are grown in nurseries. Well, I'll tell you right now. And when sedums are grown in the nursery, in the 2-inch or 4-inch pots especially, some of the nursery industry, which is used to providing plants for gardens, And a high organic sort of soil in those pots facilitates getting the plants growing and producing the plants so that they can sell them, et cetera. That high organic soil, though, in an Ecoroof condition, when you have the Ecoroof soil that's relatively porous, with this then more water-absorbing 4-inch pot root ball, then the potential problem is that as we get into the summer months, that organic matter cannot retain water as well as the porous soil actually does. So once it dries out, organic matter, once it dries out, it is very difficult to rehydrate it in hot, dry conditions. So you really have to pour the water on. So we've got some slides, and you'll see where you can actually see the little square top of the potted plant, and the sedum has grown out into the soil around it, into the Ecoroof soil, and there's just a big brown spot where that material is. We do have a lot of plants on this roof, and this is where we really observed it most. And it's not 100% of these plants are in a potting soil that had that problem. I'd say maybe 50% of them have had that problem.
Can you just take that potting soil out and bare root them?
Yeah, we'll get into planting methods a little bit later, but there are ways you can deal with that. One way would be to check the nursery, and we're trying to get that message out. Anybody from the nursery industry here? Yeah. Hey, so just kind of have that in mind if you, as you're.
We have a different mix for the drought-tolerant plant material.
Good. Okay. Good. So I think, and I know we've talked about this in the past. So the idea would be to look at plants that are grown for eco-roofs and have a soil that's going to be okay if it's in a potted plant condition.
You get the same effect, like you said on one of the other ones, that even though it dies back, you still get the same effect of absorbing the rainwater in the winter when the foliage is not.
Once that material, she's asking about the rainwater absorption. Initially, as the rainy season begins, it's not going to absorb the water, the rain, as it would once it gets a little bit of moisture in it, because then it loosens up and it has more capacity. But for a while, it actually repels water until it has a chance to get in there. So as we get into the rainy season, it probably doesn't take long to do that. But when you're trying to irrigate it, you can really notice how it just doesn't really take the water very well.
Well, I didn't mean the potting soil. I meant, you said that this is deciduous, right?
Kamschaticum.
Oh, the kamschaticum.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, the kamschaticum in the wintertime, it probably does. We don't have conclusive information about how well the vegetated part of these roofs works for managing rain. But yes, it probably, well, I don't know. I don't want to say probably. It is still managing rain in the wintertime because that material has broken off, and now it is breaking down and it is turning into something that actually holds water versus the kind of waxy sort of character of the leaf when it's like this. But anyway, we don't exactly know. But it's there and it's protecting the soil. Those leaves and stems are all there protecting the soil except they're brown. And so a lot of these plants in climates much harsher than ours, the Midwestern United States, Northeastern United States, many of their roofs are basically have a lot of deciduous plants. Like Michigan, they can't grow too many evergreens. But I think again, I'm speculating, so I shouldn't do that. Try and catch myself. I'm not sure about that. So yeah.
I was just going to say, in response to her question, the fact that it's going dormant probably isn't important because even the evergreens have slowed down, so they're not personally taking up a lot of water. They're like hibernating. They're not growing.
So it's not really evapotranspiration so much as it is just kind of like physical absorption of.
I think there's just a lot to think about, and really nobody's studied this, well, at least that I know of in this area, specifically regarding the plants. Because even the evergreens will sort of hibernate, but they take advantage of any opportunity they can. So if we get a warm spell, well, they will continue to grow this time of year up until we start getting into the 30s, and then they'll really slow down. But this time of year, they're still growing, whereas the kamschaticum is already starting to lose its leaves.
But that's the top. If it's dormant instead of annual, the roots may still be taking up water.
Well, and stormwater management is not the roots taking up water. Stormwater management is the root system and the soil all kind of absorbing the water and then slowly transpiring it out. And so so something interesting about the monitoring that we've done is that we get really good stormwater retention even in the winter. So where's that water going in the wintertime when we're showing that we're getting anywhere from 20% to 40% of the rainfall is not going down the drain? So it's a very interesting thing. Where is it going? How is it transpiring out of is it transpiring? Is it evaporating from the soil, or what's happening? So those are questions that will be, I don't know that the city of Portland will get the answer to that, but maybe academia will be more involved in helping to answer some of those questions. I know Penn State University is really working on that quite a bit, those types of issues, the horticulture department. And maybe OSU horticulture department folks will be doing much more of that, I hope.